No, we're not. No, we are. Well, listen, it's great to have you here tonight and great to have you welcome to Tallahassee, Steve Brofman and Robin Bullock. Um, Steve assured me that although from San Francisco, he's won no awards, and he doesn't see any in his future, but the awards don't tell the tale of their music. I know some of you have already snuck online and listened to them on YouTube, and some of you have already heard them before. We're in for a great evening of music, good entertainment, and even though as a Canadian I was thinking coming over here tonight that the weather is making me feel a lot like Christmas, that really isn't what's going to do it. I think getting just a good taste of some quality music will tune us up for this Advent.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We are just so happy to be here. The spirit, the real candles on the front lawn out there, the lighting, the smiling faces. This is just putting us in the Christmas spirit more than anything I've experienced all season. So thank you so much for your warmth and for having us. We're really thrilled to be here. I'm from California, and this is my very first Florida experience. I've been in Florida an hour and a half, and I have, thank you.
It's a good way to start, isn't it?
I thought you all had palm trees and beaches and stuff, but I guess that's just fake news. Anyway, it's really fun to be here. Thank you for having us. We're going to do a couple old standards. This first one is a piece that was one of my earliest songs. My mother's German, which is part of where I got my deep love for Christmas. And this was one of the first songs I ever learned to hum as a kid, O Tannenbaum, O Christmas Tree. And I never really paid that much attention to what a gorgeous song it was until last year, Christmas season, right before this tour. I was walking down by the San Francisco Ferry Building, where some of you may have been, just a beautiful part of San Francisco. And it was a drizzly, cold San Francisco gray day, and there were a couple dedicated folks from the Salvation Army sitting there on the sidewalk with little Santa hats playing music in the drizzle and the cold and looking really, really unhappy. And nobody was listening, but I stopped and listened, and I was just struck that these folks were so dedicated that they were playing their music right there, and they played this piece, and it was the first time I'd ever heard what a beautiful piece it was. And to this day, I'm thankful to those two folks who thought nobody appreciated them, and here a year later, we're sharing a song that they inspired us to play with you folks. So it's called O Tannenbaum, and then we're going to go into Angels We Have Heard on High.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, we're going to shift gears a bit here, and Steve is going to pick up the banjo. I'll pick up this 1920 Gibson mandolin I have here, or 1921, I guess this one is. And we'll play you some Appalachian old-time music, a genre that we're both dearly fond of. And this is an old-time fiddle tune that we thought would be appropriate for a celebration of the season because it's called Star of Bethlehem. We learned this from a great old-time fiddler from Alabama named James Bryan. And what we're going to do is give our best effort at imitating one of the classic instrumental combinations of old-time Appalachian music, which is fiddle and five-string banjo. Steve, of course, is playing the five-string banjo. I'm going to play what a fiddler would normally play on the fiddle on the mandolin. And if you heard me play fiddle, you would understand why I'm making that decision. So we're going to play this in a pretty traditional old-time Appalachian. Sorry, I'm originally from the Washington, D.C. area, and when I moved to North Carolina several years ago, one of the first things that happened was I learned the proper pronunciation of Appalachian. Anyway, the classic Appalachian manner, the classic Appalachian style of arrangement, which is to say, no arrangement at all. We're just going to play the tune over and over and over and over again. That's what they do in the mountains. We're going to play it over and over again until we decide it's time to stop. Now, that may not be the same as when you decide that it's time that we stop, but we're in charge here. So if we're still going in, half an hour or so, just come up and kick us or something. Yeah. Here we go. Star of Bethlehem. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks very much. All right, let's everybody just calm down now. Go back to the guitars and play some more music of the season. Both Steve and I, as he mentioned, he grew up celebrating Christmas from the very beginning as part of his family traditions, and so did I. And in fact, as luck would have it, when I first decided I wanted to play the guitar, I was about 7 or 8 years old. Saw Glenn Campbell on TV or something like that, and decided, yeah, I want to do that. That looks cool. So my parents very indulgently bought me a cheap 3/4 size guitar because I was a little bit smaller then than I am now, and signed me up for group guitar lessons at the local community center on Saturday mornings, where, it being the early 70s, we all basically sat around in a corner strumming chords and singing Blowin' in the Wind. But, that's how I got started. And but actually, one of the very first songs that I learned how to play was the Christmas carol "Away in a Manger." And after I'd had 2 lessons, I played it in my hometown church on guitar. So that was the very first thing I played on guitar in public. So Steve and I are going to play an arrangement. You did not know that? Oh, yeah. This is the arrangement has evolved a bit over the years. Anyway, we're going to play a couple of different melodies of "Away in a Manger" that we've found along the way, and from there go into a great French carol in honor of my adopted homeland for 13 years. I lived in France from 2000 to 2013, and where I discovered that most of the Christmas carols that we know in this country are in fact French, or at least that's what they told me. Anyway, but this one definitely is. It's a French dance tune that goes back to the 16th century that became a Christmas carol when somebody wrote new words to it and called it "Ding Dong Merrily on High." So 2 versions of "Away in a Manger" and then "Ding Dong Merrily on High."
can't tell you how much fun that is to play that with Robin. Robin and I have known each other's music for many, many years, but we hadn't met till about 15 years ago when we were both teaching at a beautiful musical festival in the mountains of North Carolina, just outside of Asheville. And I was sitting under a tree. I think it was the first or second day of the festival, and I was sitting there playing, and I saw this figure coming by, and I recognized the silhouette from his album photos and his publicity materials, and he knew who I was. So we sat there under a tree and chatted a bit and said, let's play. And it was one of the most enriching musical moments of my life to just sit and do fingerstyle. We both do fingerstyle guitar, and one of the things Mozart said came so true for me, that the only sound better than the sound of one guitar is the sound of two guitars. And of course there are many, many beautiful sounds, but one of the things that just gets my soul more than anything is to take the old pieces of music and arrange them for fingerstyle guitar, and then come along and say, Robin, quadruple the goodness of this, and then he adds
Do something with this.
So we'll play another song that I learned from my mother. This is Ihr Kinderlein Kommet, which means, has nothing to do with Halley's Comet. It's O Come Little Children, and this is the song that every morning, Christmas morning, my two sisters and I were confined to our bedrooms until we heard the Vienna Boys Choir down in the living room, not the real, the record. Remember those things? Yeah, we didn't have the money to fly the Vienna Boys Choir out to play for us every morning, but they'd start singing, Ihr Kind. They did it better than this. I mean, I'm not dissing the Vienna Boys Choir, but Ihr Kinderlein kommet. And that meant, come enjoy the materialist part of Christmas, which is very important to children. And so it's a beautiful song, O Come Little Children. Let me just check.
Thank you very much. I'm going to take turns playing a couple of solo pieces for you now, and Steve lost the coin toss tonight, so he gets to go first.
In fact, I'm going to switch over to. This here is a gourd banjo, and what it is, it's just a real banjo with instead of a banjo body, it's just a gourd, and it has a very, very ancient primal sound, and it's just been one of my favorite things the past year or so to sit and figure out what sounds I can get out of this thing. You play it like a real banjo, but it doesn't have frets, so you can get these nice. Sound, and you know, in California we're very politically correct, and it's normally called a fretless banjo, but the word less implies a lack, so we just call it a fret challenged banjo. So I'd like to share some sound of the fret challenged banjo with you, and this is a lovely old tune. It was written by a guy who was born in 1853, and I assume he wrote it sometime after that. I can't remember when, but it's called "Star in the East," and I think it's a sacred harp song, but I'm going to do it for you now on gourd banjo with a little bit of singing thrown in. Star in the east, our horizon adorning, guide where my infant Redeemer is lain. Hail the bright morn, see the great mediator, down from the regions of glory descends. Shepherds go worship the babe in the manger, lo, for his guard the bright angels attend. Brightest and best of the stars of the morning, dawn on our darkness and lend us thy aid. Star in the east, our horizons adorning, guide where my infant Redeemer is lain. Hail the Christmas day so long expected. Hail the day of new release. Zion's walls are now erected, and her watchman publishes peace. Brightest and best of the stars of the morning, dawn on our darkness and lend us thy aid. Star in the east, our horizon adorning, guide where my infant Redeemer is lain. Star in the east, our horizons adorning, guide where my infant Redeemer is lain. I'll switch back to the old 6-string, the guitar, play you another good old standard. Sorry, Fred, I'm going to move this down. I don't need it anymore for this part of the show. There we go. This is the piece that it's a Christmas song called What Child Is This? And those of you who are guitar players out there, I know there's a few of you and some fine singer-songwriters. I'm just getting myself in tune. You know, this little machine I have at my feet, it tells me when I'm in tune, and it's usually right, but I had a person in California come up to me after a concert once. This is when these devices were kind of new, and this woman's sitting right there in the front row, and she said, what is that machine you're looking at? Is that an applause meter? Yeah, and you didn't clap loud enough, ma'am. No. Anyway, guitar players, I'm in a different tuning, so in fact, Robin and I have retuned our guitars. We don't play the guitars in standard tuning. We retune them so we get that sparkly Celtic sound that we really like a lot. So if you see us at the CD table after the show and you want to ask about that, we are total guitar nerds and love talking about it ad nauseum. So, but we're in very weird tuning. So here is What Child Is This? Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, Robin. Thank you.
All right, Steve Boffman there. I'll shift genres again. Steve and I both have very wide-ranging musical tastes, and I'd like to play something composed by probably my single favorite musician, composer, and to my way of thinking, the greatest musician who ever walked the earth. Of course, who could that be but Jerry Garcia. Thank you. Very good. Yes. I've actually had people say Paul McCartney, but no. No, referring, of course, to Johann Sebastian Bach. I'm a huge fan of the music of Bach. Steve and I played a concert in my hometown of Black Mountain, North Carolina, this summer. And as Steve mentioned, his mother is German, and she was passing through. She came to the concert, and afterwards she gave me no end of grief for saying Bach instead of Bach. So I'll do my best, but I am a Yank. There's not much I can do about that. So a little something from Johann Sebastian Bach here. This is one you will probably recognize, even if you're not an annoying Bach nerd like I am. Because this is probably his single best known and best loved composition. Bach's greatest hit, this might be. It's a chorale from one of his cantatas, which means that in its original form, it was composed for and first performed by a full choir, a full orchestra, and a pipe organ. So this is my best crack at reducing all that to one guitar. Jesu, joy of man's desiring. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, Steve mentioned the different alternate tunings that he and I enjoy exploring. There are a lot of ways you can tune a guitar, besides the 6 notes that they tell you you're supposed to tune the 6 strings to in the method books. And we like to experiment and explore the different ways you can tune a guitar, because each alternate tuning offers its own possibilities, its own characteristics, its own mood. And the reason I mention it is because this next piece kind of takes the idea to something of a logical extreme, using a tuning that I personally invented just for this one piece, because this is a Christmas carol that I grew up just associating with the Christmas season. I always sang in choirs in school and in church, and invariably, whatever choir I was involved with, this time of year would sing Carol of the Bells, and that just became an essential part of the season for me. So later on, after I grew up and realized that pursuing a singing career would be a ghastly mistake on my part, I decided it would be fun to adapt it for solo guitar, and that's where I started running into problems, because I tried it in a lot of different keys. I tried every alternate tuning I knew, and I found that I couldn't get the sound that I was looking for in my head. I could play the notes, but I wasn't getting the sound. And sometimes in music, that's 2 different things. The sound I was looking for was the sound of church bells ringing on a snowy winter night, the sound of snow falling, if snow falling made a sound. If it made a sound, that was the sound I was looking for. And finally, in desperation, I just invented this whole new way of tuning the guitar just for this one piece. It's discordant and illogical and counterintuitive and completely useless for any other piece of music in the known universe. But if you tune your guitar all cockeyed like this and capo it way up high like this, Carol of the Bells magically pops out. So for those of you who play guitar, it's not a secret. I'm happy to share the tuning from low string to high string. It goes C, G, D, G, A, B flat. Yeah, see, even if you don't play the guitar, that sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? So you capo it way up high, as I say, like this, and that's the tuning I'm going to use, and that gives me the sound I was looking for. So this is Carol of the Bells for drastically retuned solo guitar. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Hey, before we go any farther, how about it for our friend Fred Chester back there doing a great job with sound? Yeah. Well done, Fred. Thank you. Sounding so good up here, and hopefully sounds all right out there too. Well, we'll bring Steve back up here and go from the sublime to the ridiculous, and play some more Appalachian music. Again, imitating the sound of an old-time fiddle and banjo duet, but this time, not only will I play the fiddle part on the mandolin, but Steve will play the banjo part on guitar. So, it's...
Sorry, I actually am in a banjo tuning. Those of you who are old-time banjo players know this tuning as sawmill tuning. So there's, I am tuned like a banjo.
Yeah. And actually what he's going to do, with the right-hand technique he's going to use is what they call claw hammer. You saw him doing that on the real banjos earlier. It's an older style of banjo playing that predates the more modern bluegrass three-finger style. In which, well, why don't you explain it, Steve?
Yeah,
What's going on there?
It's a really interesting thing. So get comfortable, because this will only take about 25 minutes for me to explain this technique to you. But in the olden days, when the banjo music that I play comes from the rural folks, and they would spend all their day with their farm implements, and when they got back to their cottages or their huts at night, and they wanted to play their instruments, their hands they sort of had really bad steering wheel hand, like you get after you drive from Macon to Tallahassee. Your hands are kind of stuck like this. And so they figured out a way to play where they could just, instead of picking the strings upward like most people who are playing stringed instruments are doing, they would learn how to just have their hand do this. Dung, chaka, dung, chaka, dung, chaka, dung. And it's just astonishing. You talk about things being vastly greater than the sum of their parts. Clawhammer technique is exactly like that. Just with this hand going dung, chaka, dung, chaka, dung, chaka, dung. That's all I'm doing. All that music's coming from my right hand going. Shall we go into it? Oh, yeah, that's right. So there's my hand going. You can slow it down, have it be slow and bluesy. Or you can be happy. Going up Cripple Creek, going in a run. Okay, all of that is from my hand going da-da-da-da. I could go on and on about this, as you can see, but I won't. Let's play Cluck Old Hen. We were trying to find some way to tie the tune Cluck Old Hen into Christmas, and we figured it's a stretch, but hen is a fowl, and so is turkey.
And also hens are mentioned in the 12 Days of Christmas.
That's right, yeah.
So we figure that gives us legitimacy to play this tune.
So, okay. And then the second tune is called Shenandoah Falls, so we're happy to have you along for the ride. Here goes.
very much. We have a couple of friends here that asked us to play this next tune. Another one of the great musicians of history that we're both big fans of is the blind Irish harper of the 17th century, Tarlac O'Carolan. And we've both over the years just loved adapting his harp pieces for the guitar. He really had a way of synthesizing the ancient Irish harping bardic traditions with the influence of Baroque music that was happening on the continent at the time, in a way that, as far as I know, has never really been done before or since. So we've both recorded a lot of his tunes separately and together. And in fact, I have recorded so many of his tunes over the years myself that a couple years ago I gathered a bunch of my solo tracks of Carolan tunes together into a compilation CD that I creatively titled The Carolan Collection. And the reason I mention it is because that's a CD I'm particularly proud of. It's a benefit CD. All of the money from sales of the Carolan Collection is being donated to a couple of animal rescue organizations in the Asheville area where I live. And Steve and I have both done benefit projects of that sort, in addition to the CDs that are, just all about filthy lucre and profit for us. But anyway, this is, so I recorded this, I brought together a whole bunch of Carolan tunes on this one benefit CD, as I mentioned. And so now, in a dazzling display of marketing genius, we're going to play a tune that's not on that CD. But it is, however, the opening track of the very first CD that Steve and I did together. And so this one's for Fred and Marcia. This is called Lady Blaney. Thank you. Here. Pick up yet another instrument here that we haven't played yet. This is a bit of a musical mongrel if you haven't seen one of these before. It answers to several different names. Some people just call this an octave mandolin. The little brown one I was playing earlier is a mandolin. This one's an octave lower, therefore it's an octave mandolin. But in the Celtic traditional music world, where I first ran across it, it's known by a couple of other names as well that are both borrowed from other instruments of other traditions. Some people call this a cittern, C-I-T-T-E-R-N, which was sort of a loose family name for instruments during the Renaissance that had paired or tripled wire strings. And some people call this a bouzouki because it kind of marginally resembles the Greek instrument, the bouzouki, which a true Greek bouzouki has a bowl-shaped back like a lute and a slightly longer, skinnier neck, but it's obviously related. Some people add to the confusion by calling this version of it an Irish bouzouki, which sounds a bit like a contradiction in terms to me, but whatever. I don't really care. I use the names pretty much interchangeably. I try not to call it a bouzouki if I'm carrying it through an airport, but I've found that that's not a good idea. Anyway, we'll use the combination of the whatchamacallit here and the guitar to play another set of Christmas carols. The first is one that Steve's sister actually wrote. Partly plagiarizing the Israeli national anthem unconsciously, as it turned out, but we're pretty sure it's her melody anyway. It's called The First Great Joy of Mary. From there, a carol variously known as People Look East or Shepherds Shake Off Your Drowsy Sleep. And finally, a good old Christmas drinking song from Gloucestershire, England, called the Gloucestershire Wassail. much. I'll go back to the mandolin this time, and I'll offer you another set of three Christmas-flavored tunes that, other than the fact that they all have to do with Christmas, have really nothing in common at all. Except that we like them all, and so we just sort of smashed them together into this continuous medley. The first is the first is a madrigal that Steve brought to the duo from an aborted attempt at joining a choir. Is that right? Yeah. Is that the story?
It still brings humiliation to me when I think about this.
He's still dealing with a certain amount of PTSD as a result of this.
When I went to high school, the cool choir was this madrigal group, and there was the concert choir, which anyone could be in, and I was. But then there was this cool choir that I auditioned for, and I didn't get in. But I did steal one of their tunes, and so I got back at him.
That's been his revenge.
And
yes.
58 years later, I can't remember the numbers, but here we are playing it. It's a piece called Lirum Lirum, and I've never heard it, Lirum squared. And that's Latin, and it means something, and we don't know what, and we hope it's okay. But it's a beautiful, beautiful old madrigal that we do for guitar and mandolin.
Guitar and mandolin.
And then we're going to go into something else.
From there, another French carol that you might have heard called Pas de Pain. And from there into another old-time Appalachian fiddle tune called Breaking Up Christmas. Yeah. And the title, Breaking Up Christmas, doesn't mean breaking up a party, breaking up a gathering. Breaking Up Christmas was a custom in the mountains back when they used to celebrate Christmas on January 6th, which they still call Old Christmas in parts of the mountains. The celebration of Christmas was later moved to December 25th, which was St. Stephen's Feast. Good King Wenceslas on the Feast of Stephen and all that. But anyway, but they used to celebrate Christmas on January 6th, which was known as Old Christmas, because that's the 12th day of the 12 days of Christmas. And the custom was to wind up the 12 days Christmas celebration by breaking up Christmas, the last night of Christmas, January 6th. And everybody in a town would get together in somebody's home and make music and party and eat and drink, basically until the food and the booze ran out, at which point they would move to the next house and continue the party there until the food and the booze ran out there, and then on to the next house and the next and the next, all night long until the sun came up and Christmas was over, and that was called Breaking Up Christmas. So, Lirum Lirum, Pas de Pain, and Breaking Up Christmas.
We'd like to dedicate this to Linda Harkey, who's really the person who first got the idea of bringing us here and talking to the people who brought us here. So thank you, Linda. This is for you.
This is her fault. Thank you. I'll start anyway, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. We're going to play you one more for this evening and call it a night. And we'd like to let you know before we call it a night that, as you probably noticed on your way in, strategically located between where you are now and anywhere in the outside world that you may wish to go, there is a table out there with a ridiculous number of CDs on it. And, there are also tables out there with ridiculous numbers of brownies and cookies and other indulgent baked goodies. So it's really a fascinating place to just sort of hang out and enjoy yourself for a while after the show. But, we know how stressful the holiday season can be with all the gifts you have to buy and so forth. And so we like to think of, bringing our stash of CDs for sale along to these Christmas concerts as something of a public service this time of year.
We have a special tonight only. You buy 20, you get one for half price.
That's right. And a free brownie. So,
That's right.
I mean, not that we have any authority to do that, but we do it anyway. The two of us haven't yet made a Christmas CD together, though we are talking about it for next year. We have made 2 duo CDs that are not Christmas material, mostly Celtic traditional music. I've got 2 Christmas CDs of my own. In fact, the one that was playing out there as you came in, that's one of mine. And as I mentioned, we both have benefit projects for various causes, and most of the rest of what's on the table is Celtic music to some degree or another, and so we'll be happy to give you the guided tour. And let's see, is there anything else? Oh yes, there's an email list. If you like what you hear, please sign up on our email list, and we'll send you updates about where we're going to be. We'd love to come back here this time next year. So give us your email address, and we promise to bother you, but not too much. So, sure. You want to take over?
Yeah, before we play this, we really want to thank the folks at the Episcopalian Church here for having us. So much work goes into making this place beautiful. I saw people out there lighting candles, and before we got here, there were folks making the cookie trays just perfect, and all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes that we don't even know about, that people are just doing it out of a love.
And they have treated us like royalty, I've got to say. It's been wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to all of you. We'd really like to thank our tour manager, the gentleman who has been single-handedly responsible for persuading us in the 15 years ago. This is our 15th time coming to the South for our Christmas tour, and Joe Cullison is the gentleman who put the idea in our heads and said he's going to organize it, and he's going to drive us, and he's going to introduce us to Waffle House, which we don't have in California. And so let's give a warm thank you to Joe Cullison.
Yeah.
And thank you all for coming out. Before we leave, we'd like to ask one thing of you all to join us on this next piece. Next Christmas Eve will be the 200th anniversary of the first performance of Silent Night. It was written in a little Austrian mountain town called Oberndorf, and I'm really hoping to get over there for the 200th celebration. I just picture people from all over the world gathering there and singing that song that has meant so much to me since I was a little kid. And Robin and I dearly love the piece. And what we'd like to do is we'll play it a couple times on guitar, and when you see us, look at you or something, start singing it with us, and let's see if we can make the rafters ring. The acoustics in here are just gorgeous, and we'd love to share this song with you before we say goodbye. So thank you again for being here. Merry Christmas to everyone. Happy holidays, and here's Silent Night.
I love the fact that they're going to celebrate the 200th anniversary of Silent Night by hundreds and hundreds of people gathering in Oberndorf singing it.
Yeah.
Seems kind of contradictory.
I'm bringing my banjo.
So in that spirit, here we go.
Shepherds quake at the sight. Glory streams from heaven afar. Heavenly hosts sing Alleluia. Christ the Savior is
Thank you. Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you. Great having you all here tonight, Robin, Stephen. Thank you so much. I think we've already signed you up for next season. Thank you.